Hey, yo, Foxboro. Thank you for tuning in to another episode today with me, Sarah Marshall. And I am joined by my friend, Pat Pitts. He doesn't get another wonderful introduction like he did last week because I don't
You have
have
to,
the energy.
you
So
gotta acknowledge the champion, though.
he is the champion of peeps. There we go.
Champion of the Patriot peeps. That's right.
Oh, the
Thank you.
Patriot peeps. Okay.
Well, all the peeps, but we are on a Patriot show today. It is
That is
week
true.
one, so we have to go from general to specific, and this week it's my Patriot peeps.
That is true. We are still looking for a title for our wrestling podcast. So if
Yeah,
anyone
that'd be
has any
nice.
suggestions, please let us know.
Yeah, let us know. That'd be great. That would be
'Cause
really nice.
We got ripped online for our previous one.
Yeah.
For choosing 3 words, generic words from the English language.
Everyday use words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're still waiting.
You know
I
what?
just dribbled. This is starting off wonderful.
No, it's fine. You know what? It's Friday, and
It is
with every
Friday.
Friday, you need some shenanigans and nonsense. So that's what we're here for.
Don't forget, guys, today we are presented by E2G Sports. Please make sure to check them out on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Subscribe to their channels. You can subscribe to mine as well. I would love that. But today we are getting into finally talking about real football. It's finally week one. We get to talk about actual things that can happen in the Patriots game. They, of course, go to Miami. Well, they're technically already in Miami. And they will be playing the Dolphins week one. But before we get into all of that, I just want to catch up on the news of the week because there is a little bit of news that is relevant to this game. So it was announced a couple days ago that the Patriots signed Marcus Cannon, our old friend Marcus Cannon, to the practice squad. And I think that the initial reaction was excitement just because, he was on the Patriots for 8, 9, 10 years, whatever it was before.
Yeah, it was close. It was close to that.
But it is a little bit concerning. We'll get into the offensive line later, but did this worry you initially just because they were bringing in another offensive tackle and they've been dealing with issues on the offensive line? And they sign another guy right before the first game. Like, do you think that's an indication of how they are feeling about the state of the offensive line?
I mean, a little bit, but you have to think of who they signed. Like, if it was any Joe Schmo, then I'm kind of on that boat. But it's Marcus Cannon. He was on the offensive line when we were winning Super Bowls. So,
3, as a matter of
3
fact.
to be exact. 1, 2, 3. So it's fine to me. I'm okay with it. And so the practice squad too.
Yeah.
All that's going to do is just help everyone around them get better, get that experience, because you still need. This is a young team. This is a young Patriots team that is not like they all grew together. It's kind of thrown together in the past 2 seasons. So you have to think. They need some veteran leadership. He's that guy. I'm okay with it. If anything, it helps us. Maybe you can even teach Matt Patricia something.
Well, and I think some people were concerned not just because of the implications of what they might feel about the line, but he didn't play in 2020. He was one of the players that did decide to sit out for COVID, which is respectable. But he only played in 4 games last year for the Texans. So, it's bringing in another guy that has kind of not really played for 2 years. He, got experience last year. Obviously, he was in some games, so it wasn't like he wasn't around. But I was fine with it, too, because it adds more depth, like you said. He's very familiar with the team. He's very familiar with the coaching. And there's question marks on the offensive line as it is. So they currently have signed, because I wanted to look this up. So Trent Brown, Isaiah Wynn, Yodny Kajus, and Justin Heron. So those are offensive tackles. Sorry. Yes. 5 offensive tackles. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So with Cannon's signing, though, it makes it interesting because they had already been at 16 on the practice squad, which means someone's going to have to be moved. So I'm wondering who that's going to be. I'm assuming that it's probably going to be a receiver just because they had 4 or 5 on the practice squad, I would assume. But
yeah.
James Ferentz was already elevated for the game. So he was from the
Really?
practice squad. Yeah. So
And
I'm
not low
assuming
Jordan Humphrey?
they still can. I think they have until tomorrow to elevate another player. We're gonna get into that. Um, okay, well let's just jump into it.
All right,
Who
all
do you
right,
think
all
they'll
right.
elevate? So as of right now, they only have James Ferentz, so that's of course more help on the offensive line in case they need it. Um, and like I said, I'm pretty sure they have until tomorrow to elevate another person. Who would you like to see elevated?
Well, Jordan Humphrey, he's my guy. I mean, I saw him play the entire training camp, and when the first few times I went, excuse me, I was like, "Who's 83?" I kept looking
Yeah.
at people like, "Who's 83?" Because I don't have a roster in front of me. You know what I mean? So I find out it's Jordan Humphrey, and then I become the biggest fan of him because I remember when he played back in college and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
But then it got even increased my love
Yeah.
for him because he just kept playing well. He kept running drills well, and then he played, I would say, the best out of the receivers not in that big three, or
Mm-hmm.
so to me, it's kind of like, we screwed up. Here's your second chance. You got to give it to him.
Yeah. I'm thinking a lot of it is going to depend on who ends up not playing. The injury report came out for Friday, so they obviously still have time to update it, but as of right now, the players that were limited in practice today and are questionable for Sunday is Bledsoe, Myers, Montgomery, Wade, and Wynn. Wynn seems like he's on track. He spoke to the media today. Seems like he's
Good.
likely going to play on Sunday. So unless something drastically changes in the next 2 days, I don't see him sitting out. Montgomery did go back to practice on Monday, but I don't think that they really ever spoke about
Oh,
the
I would like to see
severity.
him. I would
They
like to see Ty Montgomery, but I don't think he's ready.
Yeah.
I don't think he's ready to get back. And to me, it's not worth it week one
Yeah.
with him,
Well,
so.
yeah, and so that's why I was saying, like, okay, so if Montgomery doesn't play, then maybe they'll elevate JJ Taylor because he can kind of play in the same role, just because um we don't know what their plans are with Pierre Strong Jr. We haven't seen like that breakout from him yet. So it seems unlikely that they would keep him on the roster, but then elevate like Kevin Harris. Like that doesn't really make any sense.
I agree there.
Or if they want more insurance at wide receiver, since apparently Kendrick Bourne has been a little bit iffy, or if Jacoby doesn't play, then I would say that opens the door for Humphrey, like you said. Treadwell or Lynn Bowden Jr. That's my guy too. But
It'd be nice.
Treadwell and Bowden are relatively new to the practice squad, so we haven't really heard that much about how they've looked.
What do you think of
And
Treadwell?
I like him.
I think he's fast as hell. I think he's
Yeah.
perfect.
I thought he was great. He was a former first round pick, which
Yeah.
I know that maybe people
That's
are
crazy.
overlooking it, but the Raiders didn't even like give him a shot. They traded him before they could. And I think that he could be like a piece that the Patriots need. Like they're definitely
yeah.
trying to get younger and they're trying to get fast. Oh, I'm sorry, wrong person. He went to Minnesota. What am I thinking? I'm thinking of who am I thinking of? Who am I thinking? I thought about somebody else. Okay, someone else was drafted by the Raiders and then traded. I couldn't think of who it is. Anyway, so yeah, Treadwell was in Minnesota
That's
and then
gonna bug me.
Atlanta and Jacksonville. Yeah. So obviously his numbers haven't been great, but I'm all for like experimenting with these guys. I mean,
Oh yeah, me
I
too.
I think that it still feels like they're a little bit iffy with who they want to go with, like the main guys for receiver. We talk about Jacoby Myers being, wide receiver one, and that's great, but I feel like they're still not 100% like all in. You know what I mean? Like, and then we're having issues, or supposedly they're having some sort of issues with Kendrick Bourne. And so if that fizzles out, then it's like, okay, well, if they don't re-sign Myers, they trade Bourne or something like that, they're going to need some people to step up. And if they're not planning on paying some top guy in free agency, then I'd rather them go for these guys that are flying under the radar but are perfectly capable of being good.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing that the NFL has kind of proven to us
Yeah.
is that the caliber of receiver, it matters, but it isn't the whole truth. It
Yeah.
isn't going to, make or break you're winning the Super Bowl or whatnot. Like, it's all about the chemistry between the wide receivers and quarterbacks. I mean, look at Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
If I'm an NFL quarterback, or if, whatever, I would want Hunter Renfrow on my team
Yeah.
over a lot of other big names.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Yeah.
I think Treadwell, like, we said briefly, he is a former first round draft pick. He was drafted 23rd overall. Yes. Obviously there's a reason for that. I think that in some ways he kind of wasn't given the opportunity to be who he could be, whether or not that's because he hasn't his play hasn't transitioned well into the NFL, or if it's because of his situation. I mean, he was in Minnesota where they have Kirk Cousins, who is very inconsistent to say the least, but Thielen has been their guy forever. So and then in that time too, I think it before Justin Jefferson. When did he come in? 2020?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So then he was gone before Jefferson, but then he went to Atlanta, which was a hot mess in 2020. And then he was in Jacksonville last year, which was another hot mess.
He just hasn't been around good teams. Yeah, I totally agree.
Or
with
good
that.
coaching. I mean, the Vikings were having coaching issues too. I mean, they had what was his name? At one point he was like partially blind. Like it's like it was just a hot mess. Just a hot mess.
Yeah.
So if he's gonna succeed anywhere, then I would assume that it's going to be with Belichick and the Patriots. So now that we just went on that tangent, you had to ask me about these guys.
Sorry, I'm curious like a cat.
So I like that. Also, Jalen Waddle and Chase Edmonds were off the injury report for Miami this week, which, I mean, I think that if anybody is going to be trying to play, they're going to come off the injury report. Like, I'm not surprised. I don't know if there was anyone really counting on Waddle being out, but
no, I didn't think he would miss this game.
Yeah, so that's that for now. Let's get into the biggest concerns of the game. Let's get the negatives out of the way. So I want to talk about these quotes from Belichick. I don't know if you saw them from today, but he spoke to Dan Shaughnessy of all people, which is kind of ironic because I think I have him blocked on Twitter because he's so annoying.
I'm not a Shaughnessy guy at all.
Yeah, so that's why it was kind of surprising. I'm like, Belichick likes you, or is it like someone that I follow on Twitter? I think it was Bruce Allen. He said, is the Boston media that toxic that's why Belichick decided to speak to Dan Shaughnessy? Like, it has to be bad if he's like, yeah, I'm going to speak to you today. Because
that's incredible.
Why?
I just don't get it. I really don't.
I don't either. So he spoke about the play calling situation, and I feel like I'm going to write an article about this later, but I definitely think he gave an interesting answer because I've said this for the past couple years. I think it was basically since the season that the Patriots went without Brady. Belichick is showing a different side of himself, and I feel like when he speaks to the media, whether it's just in an interview or even in a press conference, I feel like he's being more open and not so closed off. Like, it's not all the time. We still get the we're on to Cincinnati type of deal, but this plays into way more detail, I feel like, than he ever really gives.
Yeah. Okay.
So they were asked about play calling. There's a bunch of quotes, but there's some that stands out. So he was asked about, just the state of the play calling and the fact that people are worried with, Patricia and Judge, specifically Patricia, calling plays on offense when he has no experience in it. And he said, I don't see it any differently than it was in the last 22 years. Look at our other offensive coordinators. We had Charlie Weiss, then Josh. He'd never called offensive plays. Billy O'Brien, who succeeded Josh, never called plays in the NFL. Josh came back. We've changed coaches in every area multiple times. Defensively, Matt Patricia had never called plays. Then he won a couple Super Bowls. Brian Flores, who succeeded Patricia, had never called plays. That worked out all right. Steve Belichick has been calling defenses. We were pretty high up there. So this is about last year, which I thought was interesting too.
No, I'm fascinated by this because he's not wrong. Like, is just, that's just facts.
So we'll break it down in a second. So I'll
get to keep going. I want to hear.
But yeah, so I think that this is a little bit less worrisome for people who were concerned because, we know that they're going to cover for each other. Obviously, he believes in Patricia and Judge, because why would he hire them back and then move them
Oh,
to
for
the
sure.
roles
Yeah.
if he didn't? I think we've been hearing all summer long that they believe in each other. And even if the players have been a little bit more hesitant about their support, like openly, obviously Belichick is still seeing it, but the quote gets a little bit more interesting as it goes on.
Okay.
He speaks about last year too. He says, we were pretty high up there statistically last year. We didn't play well, obviously, in the Buffalo game and a couple of other games, but I wouldn't say we had a bad year defensively, at least not statistically. He's correct. He says, we have plenty of coaches that didn't have previous experience, and it's worked out pretty well with most of them, but not all of them. I think they're both good coaches. Ultimately, it's my responsibility, like it always is. So if it doesn't go well, blame me. So I
All
think
right.
he understands that he's feeling a lot of heat in the media, which isn't shocking. I mean, they could be doing everything right, and the media in Boston specifically is going to find something wrong. But I feel like that's a little bit different too. Like, that's something that
Yeah.
we've been hearing more this season, where he's openly just being like, okay, if shit goes wrong, give it to me. Like, don't say it to them. It's on me. And
Yeah.
you don't really hear that
Bill
from him.
Belichick just cut the promo of 2022. Like that man just, I mean, there's obviously, counterpoints to what he's saying, and like statistically they weren't good, but like they weren't good when it mattered, like stuff like that,
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
you're going to have that asshole that brings it up.
Yeah.
But he just went out there. It's a Dan Shaughnessy of all people. And it's very strategic. Why? Because he's going to Dan Shaughnessy,
Yeah.
because Shaughnessy's going to give it his way. And he knows his way is just, he's not a Patriots fan,
Yeah.
but he's in Boston media.
Yeah.
You see where my mind's
Yeah.
going there?
Mhm.
Like he played that so well. And I mean, that doesn't make me feel less confident, but it makes me feel all right. Like we're getting the same attitude back with this Mac Jones led Patriots. That kind of grit mentality that, we're the Patriots. We do things our
Mhm.
way, the Patriot way, and look how it's worked out for us. And it's good to see that happening with this era of a Belichick Patriots team,
Yeah.
because, I feel like that's something that's been questioned,
Yeah.
a lot.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
just that's unbelievable to have that drop like 2 days
Yeah.
before game day. Oh, I
Yeah.
love him.
And I'm
Love
not
him.
sure how people are reacting to it. I haven't looked into any follow-up tweets, or what Patriots fans are saying or how
Yeah.
they're reacting to it, but to me, I just thought it was intriguing. It was very interesting. Um and I feel it the same way that you do. Like, I don't know that I feel less confident or more confident. I think he basically just spoke straight to the truth. And
Yeah.
I think that even though this is a huge game for them to open with against Miami in Miami, I mean, as you saw last night after the Bills demolished the Rams, people are so quick to jump to these conclusions about how a team is going to be or how a player is going to be based off one game. And
Yeah.
imagine how bad it's going to be on Sunday if the Patriots lose. So, I mean, they already have so many things that they want to pick apart about everything. I mean, even all the way up to Belichick. So I
Yeah.
can't imagine, even if they perform well, if they lose, it's just going to be like the world has completely ended. That's how people are going to react.
And let them go into hysteria.
Yeah.
Just because, like, how many times have we seen the Patriots lose week 1 and then they win the Super Bowl and it's like, we knew it all along.
Or
Like,
even
I'm
losing
not saying
in
this.
Miami. I
Yeah,
mean,
like the year in 2003 when they won against the Panthers, they lost week 1 to the Bills 31-0. They got
mhm.
their asses kicked. And then they played them week 17 at that point, the end of the year.
Yeah.
They won 31-0. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like
Mhm.
you can't throw all your chips into week 1. All week 1's going to do is just give us the foundation of 2022. Where
Yeah.
are we going to start from? Who is going to be on our, we got to watch out for this guy all season radar? Or like, okay, he's going to be a stud.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Let me say that. I'm the champion for a reason, Sarah.
Well, and it's the same thing even in the opposite direction. Like, just because a team comes out really good, guns
Oh,
blazing, they don't last that the entire year either, So that's what happened. Look at was it Miami, the complete opposite last year? They started 1-7
yeah,
and then they won like 8 straight games.
yeah.
So, or 9, yeah, 8 or 9 straight, eight
Tomato
games.
potato.
So it's like, I mean, you can be that bad and still accomplish something, but that's a conversation for another day, or a
That is
conversation
definitely.
I've had 1,000,001 times on here,
I still have
because
it.
the Patriots are in a transition and people just don't want to deal with it. So I want to get straight into the offensive line, as one of probably the biggest concerns of the game. We've talked about it a little bit already because of the Marcus Cannon signing. How do you think they're going to hold up? Because we know that Miami is a blitzing team. They actually ranked second in the NFL for blitzing last year. They blitzed 39.6% of the time. Thank you, Pat's Pulpit, for the stats. So there, it's funny because on Pat's Pulpit as well, they broke down. I think it was from PFF. They broke down playing against Miami, how Mac Jones has done against the blitz versus no blitz. And if you look at it statistically, there's really not, it doesn't look as far apart as it actually is. But we know how, first of all, if he has a decent offensive line, we know even Brady, it would happen with Brady. If you were getting to Brady, it would throw them off. Like, even if it
Oh
wasn't for
yeah,
the entire game,
that's how you
it's
beat
like
Tom Brady.
if you can make them shaky, then that can dictate, at least the next few plays or quarters, whatever. But what do you think is, are you worried about the offensive line, first of all?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, I would say I'm not concerned, if that's a good word to use. I'm not
Mm.
concerned, but I definitely have my worries and anxious thoughts about them.
Yeah.
Just because it's an issue every year.
Yeah.
It just is never like, oh, we got a solid offensive line. I can't tell you how many times I've been able to say that in my Patriots fandom. I
Yeah.
just
It's been a
it's the only
handful of
thing I worry
years.
about with the team. Really.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. And it's one of those things that I think people don't realize that it's actually, I would say, is one of the more difficult places on the team to find
Mhm.
consistently talented and good players. Um,
Yeah.
Especially because a lot of people, or a lot of teams, when they have a high draft pick
Mhm.
in the first round, they're not going for an offensive tackle. They're not going for an offensive lineman. Usually they're going to say, okay, well, I mean, especially in the earlier ones, they go for the best available. They don't go for their biggest need.
Yeah.
So,
No, you're right.
a lot of the time, by the time you can go for one of those guys, they're already gone. So, I do think that I will be worried, just because based off of what we've seen in preseason, they were just not, they were not able to protect Jones. They couldn't open, any
Oh,
gap for
week
the
3,
run
he
game.
couldn't. They attacked him
Yeah.
like, a mouse to cheese. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable. They just
So,
kept getting to him.
yeah, and that's just what's concerning, because we know that was against not really any starters in the preseason, and they were struggling against the 2s and 3s, and it's like, okay, these are guys that aren't even going to be on the field when you play them. So
I know.
that's a
That's
little
tough.
concerning. Um I I'm hoping that that'll be better. They've spoken like in a way that seemed like things have gotten better since practices have been in Miami specifically.
Mhm.
Running backs have seemed to be, they've been speaking highly of the progression that they've had over the last week. So that is promising. Um, and I mean, we'll have to see what they do with the call ups, because I think the elevations are going to give us a little bit more of that internal feeling of how
Mhm.
they think the offensive line is, because
Yeah.
we spoke about it with Marcus Cannon, but it's unsure if Wynn is going to be able to play, which I hope he does. Do you hope
Oh,
Wynn
me too.
plays?
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I want to see Win play.
Well,
I would
because
like to see
so
our.
many people don't like Wynn, and I'm like, okay, but he's a starter at this point, and his only backups are Kajus and Justin Heron, and we haven't seen anything good from Heron on the right side.
No.
So I'm like, you got to pick and choose your battles here.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, of course we want Isaiah Wynn in right now. Like,
Yeah.
we kind of spent some good draft capital on him.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, and they have to like him because they had an opportunity to try and trade him. I'm assuming that a lot of the reason that they were unable to, if they were actually exploring it, is because of his contract. He's making over 10 million this season.
Yeah.
So I would assume that's their biggest hurdle. But because we didn't really hear that much about it, I'm going to guess that they like what they've seen from him, despite what the Twitter people are saying online. But
Yeah.
this leads me to the run game. Are you
Okay.
concerned about the run game? Because it's been such a huge part of the game, specifically over the last 2-3 years.
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's not
definitely
looked good in preseason.
No, I'm not concerned about it. I believe that it's not going to be the Harris show, but Stevenson's going to ball out. That's where the run game's really going to get going.
Yeah.
And I really think that Ramondre is going to be the one who scores. Harris might have more yards. I don't think, but he might have more yards, but I don't think he has a touchdown, where Stevenson's going to be rarely utilized in the red zone.
So you think he's RB1?
No,
are they going to be like, are they RB1 A and B?
It's 1A and 1B.
Yeah.
Where Harris will be the yards guy. I don't know how many he'll have. I don't think he'll get into the end zone.
Something last year.
Yeah, I know. That was tough. He almost had 1,000. That would have been nice. But I think he will I think he won't score. It'll be the Stevenson show for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard because I know that people love the rotating door of running backs. And obviously the Patriots drafted 2 this past year. So it seems like their intention is to not keep Harris after this season. But I kind of hope they do, because he's proven to be good. He's proven to be like exactly what they've been looking for. It's just him and Stevenson play differently. They're built differently. But I don't think that makes one more valuable than the other. I think it just depends on what type they want to play. Like, Stevenson's the bigger guy, the LeGarrette Blount type of back, and that's just not how Harris plays. That's not how he's built. First of all, he kind of can't be that kind.
Harris is a way more elusive back.
Yeah.
Than Stevenson. I mean, Stevens, can juke and jive, but the power that he runs with and like the force that he uses with his stiff arms is just incredible.
Yeah. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see, because we know historically when Belichick is probably ready to move on from a player, they usually kind of fall from being used as much as they previously were. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And then, of course, there's Ty Montgomery, who I think he's going to be tried to be utilized in more of a James White type of way. And I really hope they do, because I feel, I wrote about it, a month ago, but I feel like he can be their secret weapon. I think missing James White last year was huge. I mean, he only played through partially of the third game, and then I feel like they kind of felt it. Like, just despite how Harris had 900 plus yards and 15 touchdowns, and Stevenson showed out and did great in his rookie year, I think that they were definitely missing a passing back, and James White is the old reliable, as I call him.
Yeah, exactly.
So if Ty Montgomery can kind of, I'm hoping, first of all, if he can play, but if I don't want them to risk injury, as you said earlier. But yeah, I'm excited to see him play. I'm excited to see the run game in general.
I'm excited. Me too.
It's funny though, because I'm sitting here and I'm like, yes, I'm so excited we get to have Patriots football. And then I'm like watching the game last night and I'm like, I don't like this stress. And the only reason I was stressed is because I hate the Buffalo Bills. So I was like, I don't want them to win. I don't want them to win. I don't want them to win. And then I was just like sitting there like FML, because this is just not going my way. I'm already irritated. So I was like, and then of course seeing everybody's reactions on Twitter, whether it was an overreaction one way or the other, I was just like,
the Cam Akers tweets, just unbelievable. Mean, huh?
Whose tweets?
No, the tweets about Cam Akers just not being used at all.
Well, not
were
even
just so funny.
Well, and what I'm more frustrated about, and I know it's just what we're going to be seeing at least this season until it possibly falls apart. But Josh Allen is the media's new Patrick Mahomes of like 2020, 2019. Like that's how they
Yeah,
talk about him. I mean, I don't know if you saw
I
my
ignore it.
retweet
Yeah, I ignore it.
from Patriots POV.
That I do not ignore.
Okay, if you saw his tweet, he tweeted it last night. I just didn't see it until this morning. He wrote, Josh Allen just wants to play. He just really likes playing. Playing is something Josh Allen enjoys. Allen is playing now and having a good time. It's something Josh Allen likes to do. And I'm like, that is exactly how Collinsworth talks about him. And that's like exactly how they used to talk about Patrick Mahomes.
That's how they talk about that guy. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they just
And
they don't know how to describe it. Like he just likes to play. He just
Yeah.
plays.
I know. I always think
Shut
about
up.
John Madden, rest in peace, but I always would make fun of him like because he always said like the most obvious things and just but it was meant to be like groundbreaking. It was like he just ran across the end zone. He just scored a touchdown. That's 6 points. And you're like, "Thanks, John." Like, thank you. And
I love John Madden. Like
that's like
but
how,
he's like grandpa watching the game.
Yeah. And I just think so that was annoying. Plus, as a Patriots fan, you don't want to be seeing all of this stuff. I mean, I guess it depends on how you take it.
I just don't want Phil Simms. I want none of Phil Simms.
Bills are Super Bowl favorites. Josh Allen is MVP favorite. Then they like could not stop talking about him last night, and I was just like, you know what?
It's tough.
I'm just not ready for this conversation to involve the Patriots because I just know that Twitter is going to be a toxic place on Sunday. I try to avoid looking at what people are saying on Twitter during the game because
I love it.
I can't deal with it.
I soak it
have
up like
to,
a sponge. It's hilarious.
I have to hold back because I just want to like respond to everybody who's being annoying, and then I'm like, nope, I can't do it. I can't get down in that hole with you. I'm sorry.
No, you gotta just laugh at it. That's exactly what I do. That's how I use that's my form of entertainment. Is just scrolling through that or just my timeline filled up with people overreacting. And it's just like, all right, that's, absurd, or all right, calm down there. But like, I don't know.
Well, I should try and be more like that. I'm not good at it.
You'll get there.
Maybe. So let's get into the more positive, the optimistic view. I want to talk about the keys to victory.
Shout out to this. We do for victory. We do this.
Thank you. Thank you.
No, not that. Not him.
No one's gonna I do this to my nephew now. I'm like, thank you. Now he asks me. He'll be like, he calls me TT, so he'll say TT, and I'll be like, thank you. Anyway, it's because when he couldn't say auntie, he would call me TT.
No, I get that. No.
Okay.
But this is not for Chad Gable. It's for my
I'm sorry.
Victorious BRG, Limitless Wrestling.
No,
Sweet victory.
That's in my brain constantly. Okay, keys to victory. Given how their last 2 games were against the Dolphins in their first meeting last year, Harris and Stevenson both lost fumbles. I think you might remember this is when Stevenson was in the doghouse for I think 2 games.
Yeah, no, I want to block that out of my memory.
Yes. And I'm sorry, it's going to get worse. And then in their second game, Harris also fumbled when they were basically in field goal range to win the game. And then Mac threw a pick 6. So my biggest key to victory for the Patriots this week is protect the football. Take care of the football, because people want to say that the Patriots and the Dolphins were so far apart from each other last year, and even more so this year. And I understand the Dolphins are definitely motivated. They have a new head coach that they all have rallied around. They've got some good players in the draft. They're all excited. Of course, they have Tyreek Hill. Like, I get it. They're excited. That's wonderful. But I've said for a while that I really don't think that the 2 teams are that far apart. And based off of what we've seen, they're likely both competing for the second spot in the AFC East. So if the biggest difference between the 2 of them last year was protecting the football, then I feel like their odds are not necessarily in their favor, but that's an easy thing to take care of. Knock on wood. Like
I want you.
if the biggest thing is that you guys just need to make sure you don't drop the ball, then I feel more comfortable with their chances if I think about it in that way.
I'm very comfortable with Mac not turning over the ball because that's, I would say, his main focus in a game is to make the play with the least amount of least chance to turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Where, so he's not going to air it out, any of that. I am worried if fumbling, catching the ball, not having it just tip drill out of their hands. Those are my worries, I would say.
Yeah.
But Mac Jones, I mean, he may have a pick, may not, but I'm not worried about him being the one forcing or being the cause of a turnover.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that Stevenson just had rookie jitters.
Yeah,
honestly,
for sure.
at least in the first game.
Yeah.
Harris, he had a good season for him, so it's like those two fumbles really sucked, especially when they happened and the circumstances in which they happened. But unfortunately, that's what happens. Running backs fumble. So, I mean, I'm not concerned about that necessarily. I'm also hopeful for Mac. I don't think he threw that many pick sixes. I don't know off the top of my head, but I mean, I still don't think either game was ever out of range for them to win. I have to look back. Let's see. I don't think that they were that far
No,
apart.
I wouldn't. No.
Oh wait, I did Patriots versus Patriots 2021. Why did?
Nice way to be.
No, I said 2021. Okay, so it was 24-33. Okay, so that was the second time.
Mm-hmm.
But that would also include the pick six. So you take 6 away, that makes it 27-24. So that's not that bad. And the first meetup was September 12th, so it's almost a year to the day, which was 17-16. See, and if we think about it, right, the Dolphins started off badly. So for them to be 17-16, it's like, okay, it was almost the same thing when they played the Bucks, and they were playing really well against the Bucks, which
they should have beat the Bucks.
I know. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it.
Okay. All right, we won't.
Anyway, but yeah, if they don't fumble and they don't throw a pick six, they probably could have beaten them in January. But so that's one of my biggest keys, which I'm assuming you agree.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. I would say another key is you got to make sure you shut down Tyreek Hill. Let's keep the streak going, okay? Because the Patriots have been historically good with keeping Tyreek Hill limited. I actually have a stat, which I don't know where it got from.
I love stats.
It might be Pat's pulpit again because they come in clutch for these types of things because I don't have access to things like PFF and whatever, next gen. I don't have access to that. So they said in 5 career games against the Patriots, so if you have to remember that was all with Kansas City, Hill has 25 catches for 443 yards. First of all, before we even go on, how do you have 25 catches for over 400 yards, bro? How? How is that possible? Is that not an absurd stat?
That's
absurd.
That is 44 catches for
25 catches.
25 catches for 440 yards.
Let's see what the average is. I didn't do that.
Jesus.
Oh, why? I always try to open my calculator and I press calendar.
I always do that.
443. Where is the divided by 25? Average of 17.72 yards per catch. I mean, when you break it down that way, it's like, oh yeah, that's in line. That's in line with Tyreek Hill. Because he's crazy.
That's insane.
But this is what's more interesting, okay? So 25 catches for 443 yards and 5 touchdowns. But the majority of those came in the first 2 games that they played, where he had 14 catches for 275 yards and 4 touchdowns. So that means in the last 3 games, let's look at that. Okay, of course I closed my calculator. So in their last 3 matchups, that would mean 443. I can't do math on top of my head, so judge me all you want. 168 yards in last 3 games, which would be an average of 56 yards per game. 1 touchdown.
Going on right now. I just want to let you know.
1 touchdown in 3 games. and 11 catches in 3 games.
You're
So
just
if they,
spewing numbers at
I
this
know,
point.
but that's good. That means, I mean, they've limited him to under
That is
200
good.
yards in 3 games.
That is really good.
So if they can keep that going, which it seems like as long as they have Jonathan Jones covering Hill, things are going to be good because that's who they've basically put on Hill every time they've played them. A lot of the time it's been one-on-one. But we've also seen Devin McCourty get in there, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that. But then we also have to remember you can't forget about Waddle. So
No.
you don't want to put all your it's like what the thing that people struggled with when they would go against the Chiefs. They would double cover Tyreek Hill and leave Travis Kelce open. Like what are you doing? I know that you want to try and shut one of them down, but you don't put all of your eggs in one basket and leave the other guy just like openly. Like Travis Kelce is not fast. He should not be like running 60 yards down the field.
Kmart
Like
Gronk.
I mean, Gronk wasn't ever fast. He just had humongous strides because he was a giant. And he was hard to take down. Travis Kelce gets knocked over by a guy half his size. Don't even get me started. Okay? Don't. Okay? But you can't leave Kelce open. So they don't have to worry about Kelce. But you got to worry about Waddle. What do you think?
You got to worry about both of them. I mean, Waddle, that's the thing, is that the Patriots secondary is good, not great yet.
Yeah.
After losing J.C. Jackson, that is a massive loss. So you have to worry about just containment at that point. Okay, you need to worry about just containing those two guys and keeping them in front of you. And just keep them in front of you and don't let them beat you deep. And if you can do that, then you'll be all right. Because Belichick actually, this was funny. The Patriots posted a video of Belichick breaking down Tyreek Hill footage from the last preseason game. And it's Tyreek Hill beating 2 defenders deep. And then Tua hits him, but Belichick goes, yeah, and then, it's a nice comeback by Hill on an underthrown pass. And I was like, all right, if he's noticing it, like, this is going to be massive. That he's thinking exactly what I'm thinking, is that, like, he can't throw it deep. Tua cannot throw the ball deep. I don't care what you say. You just can't.
Well, and it's going to be interesting to see how that goes because Tyreek has talked so highly of Tua. Granted, I know he has to. He's got to hype up his quarterback, but I feel like to the extent in which he's gone, it seems a little bit like he's trying to convince everybody that what he's saying is true because most people don't really believe him. And I don't dislike Tua other than the fact that he's a Dolphin and he's in our division.
I like Tua. Facts are facts. The truth hurts.
From what we've seen from him, it's not been living up to what Hill is saying. I mean, he's saying he's more accurate than like Patrick Mahomes. And I don't like Patrick Mahomes, but I mean, are we really I don't know that people would sit there and say Tua and Patrick Mahomes are nearly identical.
No, they're two very different quarterbacks. That's why it's the weirdest trade of all.
I know, and that's the thing that's weird too, is Hill said that the Kansas City Chiefs didn't want him anymore. From what I understand, that's not true.
They probably couldn't pay him. They couldn't pay him.
Yeah, they couldn't because they're paying so much money to the other guys. But then Hill was like, okay, if you can't pay me, then I want out. So then why are you taking it so offensively? It's like you wanted a ridiculous amount of money, and to a degree, he's earned that right. But if you wanted to keep going for Super Bowls and stuff, you gotta have to do what Brady did, unfortunately, and what a lot of players did, and you gotta take the hometown discount.
You gotta balance your ego.
Well, and you know what's funny? I don't even want to get into this conversation. Another one. But no, it's just it's always funny to me when we talk about money when it comes to athletes and how they'll turn down a certain amount because they want another amount. And I'm like, how much money are you planning to spend in your lifetime? To the point of 50 million is not enough.
It's wild.
It's really wild. 3 years. I'm like, do you realize that even $1 million is 100 times more than what people will make in their lifetime?
Oh yeah.
So it's just so funny to me when it's like, oh, I really wanted 65 million and they only offered me 52. It's like, what? Man, that 13 million is going to be a huge difference for you.
That's a whole other topic for another day.
I know. That's why I was like, I don't want to get into it. But anyway, okay, we're moving on to another key to victory. I would say I would like to see the Patriots get as many offensive weapons involved in the game. I would like to see them especially use double tight ends.
I
The
love
Dolphins
that.
defense has done really well over the last few, 2 years, but they've struggled, especially against the Patriots with covering their tight ends. In their first game last year, Henry and Jonnu Smith combined for 8 receptions for 73 yards. And then Henry had 5 catches for 86 yards in week 18. So clearly they're not very good at covering either of them. Jonnu wasn't really used in week 18. I have hope that he's going to be more of the Tennessee Titan Jonnu Smith this year than New
I
England
think so
Patriots.
too. I believe so.
Is that something you want to see, or are you
Oh
hoping
yeah.
that they kind of go with only like a few guys?
So I want to see Jonnu Smith be used more than a tight end, and by
Mm-hmm.
that I mean not only just catching passes, but actually doing what they did in Tennessee, like you said, like
Mm-hmm.
running the ball, tight end screens, stuff like that, and then make Hunter Henry that guy deep, and make him the true tight end
Yeah.
role that you have. But to me, you need to get one guy going. To me, if you can get one receiver going, make them just hit them on a couple good short or long pass, whatever, and then go off of the running game with Harris and Stevenson. I think that's a nice 1-2 punch that can get them at least, a couple scores, maybe a win would
Mm-hmm.
be nice.
I'm interested if they're going to utilize Devontae Parker.
All right, they're going to he'll be either deep. They're going to try, but I don't think he has a good game this week.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think, everybody likes the revenge story, and that's going to, obviously that's going to be a big thing. I mean, they've emphasized that throughout all of their press conferences this week with a few of the former Dolphins that the Patriots have this year, and I feel like people are just putting too much into it because for the most part, they weren't cut. It was like, oh, I hit free agency and they didn't re-sign me. Or,
Yeah,
Parker
exactly.
was on his way out because of Tyreek Hill. So,
Yeah.
but he probably would want to get out anyway because he was probably going to fall to third on the depth chart under Hill and Waddle anyway. So it's like, I don't think there's bad blood everywhere, like between them. But
No, there's no bad blood.
I don't know if they will use him a ton because who's going to know them? Who's going to know Parker better than the Dolphins? Like it would be a lot easier.
Nobody.
So, and my last key to victory. Sorry, guys, I'm exposing my weird self.
Nah, you gotta express yourself.
My last key to victory is the pass rush and
Judon needs to
stopping
be
the
pouncing.
run. Who is?
See, I'll get weird with you.
Who's gonna pounce?
Judon.
Oh,
My
So
king.
they need to get to Tua, and they need to stop the run because the Dolphins have set records against the Patriots with their run game over the last 2 seasons, and I don't want them to set another one. So, we've seen
Ronnie Brown isn't on the team anymore, so I think we're okay there.
well, still, it's just a concern.
They do have Mike McDaniel, Raheem Mostert, and Chase Edmonds, who they could do their own variation of the Wildcat offense, and I think it would put a dagger in my Sunday. Let me tell you that.
So, who do you think is going to be the most aggressive? Do you think it's going to be Judon, or do you think it'll be
Juwan
somebody
Bentley.
else? Huh?
I think Juwan Bentley is going to come out ferocious.
I hope, I like Bentley, and I feel like he's kind of become, I think to a lot of people, an under the radar like force on the defense, specifically, being a leader.
He's the voice of the locker room. Yeah.
He was a captain, and Judon wasn't named captain. Not that I think that's a hit on Judon, but I think that just says a lot about how the defense feels about Bentley. And I don't think that a lot of people that are Patriots fans, I don't think that they recognize Bentley in the same way that the team does, if that makes sense.
The casual fan would not understand how important Juwan Bentley is to the defense, and it's not all because of his play. He's just been a locker room voice. Coaches talked about it all preseason. I read some articles about it. That's one thing that, when coaches say things, they don't have to say, they have to say certain things to check the boxes so they're not trashing a player on there or whatnot. But then there's stuff where when they say it, it hits different. So to me, when that happens, and it's been, it was just multiple coaches too that said this about Bentley. He's a special guy, and I'm excited for him, Judon, and then Anthony Jennings. I'm excited for Anthony Jennings. Breakout year for him too.
I'm excited for so many players on the defense. The defense has always been my favorite part of a football team. Outside of Tom Brady and like Edelman and Gronk being some of my favorite players, my earliest favorite players were always defense. And I know that the defense was the bigger side in the early Patriots dynasty. But my earliest memories of watching the Patriots were Vrabel was like my biggest crush. Brewski was my mom's also, but
I knew you were gonna say Brewski.
I was the Brewski girl. Yeah.
Every girl loves Brewski.
Have you seen that man has not aged? And even though he has aged, it's like a fine wine. It's just, that is a very beautiful man. And he's a great player.
I was a Ty Law guy.
No, he's great too. I just remember, mine were, especially Vrabel. Like, I would be like, I don't care that he has a big nose. I love him. Triple H too, Anyway, but yeah, so I'm excited. Like, I even want to see Mac Wilson, Sam Roberts. Like, I'm excited in general. And I'm hoping that they can show that aggressiveness that we saw from a lot of them in preseason. And even though it was just preseason, they were getting to the quarterback, they were getting in the backfield, they were disruptive. And I'm just hoping that that'll transition well into playing real opponents, because that wasn't something that I think people were looking forward to last season. And I think that is something that more people are talking about coming into this year.
I would agree. Yeah.
You agree? All right.
I concur.
Do you have any other keys to victory, or do you just agree with mine? Did I leave something out?
No, I have one that you gotta hit. Even though I've been saying you have to get the run game going.
Yeah.
Mac Jones got to hit the deep ball. I don't care if it's a big bomb touchdown, but you got to air it out. And that's, if he can do that and do it well, then you can really know where his decision making is at the start of this year and kind of baseline it, which, that's a big test. If Mac Jones can be accurate while throwing the deep ball, we're very good. We're all set.
Well, and they've given him some great options. They have Aguilar, they have Parker. They will at some point, hopefully, have Thornton.
That's going to see.
So they have options. I would love to see Aguilar get back to 2020 Aguilar when he was with the Raiders. My favorite stat of all time to constantly remember is 18 yards per reception on the year for Aguilar. I would love for them to get back to that. That would be great. And that was from Derek Carr. And we know that Derek Carr is very like roller coaster-y type of quarterback.
I will not accept any Derek Carr slander in my presence.
I've got plenty of it.
Keep it to yourself.
I'm just saying that, he's not Tom Brady. He's not.
Yeah, and like 99% of people aren't.
Well, but you know what I'm saying? He can be very good or very bad. It just depends on the moment of the game or even per game.
He's not very bad.
Anyway, let's get into talking about the game and how we see it going. First of all, what are you hoping to see, regardless of what the outcome ends up being, whether they win or whether they lose? What are you just hoping that you see from them?
I'll just give you my prediction. I think it's 17-14 Pats.
Oh, so it's going to be low scoring and close.
Very low scoring. This game's going to be won in the trenches. Okay. This game is going to be won on the ground. It's going to be sloppy football to start. It's week 1. I think this game is going to be just a lot of running plays, Mac Jones and Tua having, here and there deep and great passes, but when it comes down to it, it's going to be a very low scoring ground and pound game.
So, but what are you hoping to see? Like, if they lose, what do you at least hope that you saw that they did, like that they did well.
I hope protecting Mac Jones.
Yeah.
If you know what, if the offensive line can protect Mac Jones and we still lose, at
Yeah.
least that concern that you have about the offensive line kind of fades away for a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you can focus like, all right, Mac just this happened, or you can pinpoint it somewhere else where it's more of a like, all right, let's talk about it or something. Where if
Like
it's the
last year
offensive
with
line,
the
that's I
fumbles or
can't.
whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like a fumble, like,
Yeah.
all right, like that happens. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But
Yeah.
like if the offensive line can really outkick their coverage and how well they play, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Damn
I
right.
think
This guy gets it.
Huh?
This guy gets it in the comments.
Oh, Jeff. Is that
His name is
yeah.
Jeff.
Yes. So I agree. I think for me, a lot of it is like offensively is what I'm just hoping to see progress from. And, especially coming out of the preseason, I think was the biggest question mark is where do they go from here? How do they improve? How do they work as a unit?
Mm-hmm.
The defense, there's issues there, but I feel like they're not as glaring as the offense was. The run game was horrible. They couldn't do anything. The offensive line couldn't do anything. Mac Jones was struggling and was frustrated. So it's like the play calling made people nervous. But now we know that it's going to be a collaborative effort between Belichick, Judge, and Patricia on offense. I'm assuming it's mostly going to be Patricia and Belichick, likely. But yeah, I definitely want to see massive improvement for the offensive line. At least, keeping him on his feet as much as possible. If he gets sacked twice or something, I'm not going to be upset about it. It's going to happen to every quarterback. It doesn't matter how good you are. I just don't want to see, 5, 6, 7, 8 sacks, like, because then it's like, what do they do from here? They don't have guys to switch out. They don't have the money to make a trade for a dependable person. They don't have the room on the practice squad to even bring someone in. So I think that is my biggest worry. And then, of course, just hoping that Mac is looking like he's at least on the same path that he left last year or looks better. Like, I would like to see that there is a chance of a second year jump because I know that people have a lot of doubts about it because of the addition of Patricia and Judge and then how things have looked in the preseason. But I'd really like to believe that, he's going to have a second year jump. But
He is. I'm
I think those are definitely
I'm confident
what I want to see. But let's say they do lose. A lot of people anticipate that they're not going to win a single game in the first month, or if they do, they're beating the Steelers and that's it. They'll go 1-3. That's what a lot of people are saying. Okay. So let's say that's true. Do you think they can bounce back from it, or is their season basically over?
No. Because the
Because
first four
the
games
AFC is
renewing.
so much tougher this year. So that's why so
Yeah,
many people, at least on paper, I think people forget they haven't played a game yet. Like,
oh yeah.
So I don't think it'll dictate their season.
No, not at all. I mean, if you look back in Patriots history in the Belichick era, their first 4 games are another preseason. And they do that not because it's, they're not ready or whatnot. It's still a feeling out process. They're still trying to figure out, who's the guy who needs some work, all that mumbo gumbo. So
Jumbo.
to me, if they go 1-3, I don't care. It's how they do. It's how they're doing after week 6. To me, if they're on that steady incline, that I'm gonna show a little bit more concern, hit the panic button or whatnot. But no, I am not worried after first 4, and especially I'm not worried after the goddamn Dolphins loss in Miami.
Yeah,
that's like crying over spilt milk.
Yeah, well, and the rest of the division has the same 14 games or whatever. They have the same 14 opponents basically, other than playing themselves. So the AFC East does have a hard schedule in general. But we don't know how anyone's going to play. Like, we were saying earlier, crowning the Bills as Super Bowl champions and Josh Allen as MVP, that's fine and dandy in August. But we don't know how they're going to play in November and December. So it's the same thing with the Patriots. You might come out bad, but I mean, look at the Dolphins. Like we said, they started 1-7, 1-8 last year, and they were borderline making it into the playoffs by the end of the year. So the AFC looks like it's going to be much tougher than it was last year, but I don't think that people remember that it literally takes like one play in a game to drastically change the result one way or the other.
No, I agree.
And even if, like you said, if they do go 1-3, that sucks, and I'm not going to be thrilled about it. But as long as they're still not playing like horribly, then I'm like, okay, it's the growing pains. We just have to deal with it.
Yeah.
You know. Plus, don't
Exactly.
forget, guys, they have like $53 million in cap next year. So if you're worried about who they're going to bring in or who they're going to lose, blah, 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 they have a ton of money next year. And not a ton of guys that I feel like are going to free agency that are like, oh, crap, we don't want to lose them. You know what I mean? Like a lot of them are just kind of like, whatever.
Oh, yeah, I would agree.
You know, I mean, other than like McCourty's going to be older, Matthew Slater, but they're likely on their way out anyway after this year, unless they shock us and stay. But, you know, it's kind of like Brady leaving. You kind of have to embrace the fact that it will happen at some point.
Interesting.
But anyway, thank you, Pat, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Yes, boys. Yes, boys.
Yes, boys.
Yes, boys. So, Hey Yo Foxboro will be back for post-game analysis on Monday at 5 p.m. Eastern. I do not know who's going to be my guest. I will have to figure that out quickly, but I will be here. So please join me once again. I will, of course, always tweet out the links if you are not subscribed, but please subscribe to me, subscribe to E2G Sports, follow us on Twitter, follow Pat on Twitter at Pat_Pitts. Help us come up with a name for our wrestling podcast, please.
Do it. Like, really,
and
we
if you're a
really
wrestling
need
fan,
that.
check
like,
out.
Not even joking.
Yeah, I know we do. Don't forget to check out that wrestling podcast whenever it does come out. I will, of course, tweet it. But until I see you guys on Monday, don't forget, go Pats.